Okay, so today we have quite a few things to go over. Um, we are going to cover two chapters, data mining, and then the second chapter is talking about relational database and SQL. These two chapters are quite important, although the material is not very hard, but I know it may be very new to some of the accounting students. But do not worry, and my plan is to introduce you in the first hour how to design an ERD diagram, and the second hour, our focus is going to be how to use SQL. Okay, learning the SQL language to interact with the database, to communicate with the database is a very important skill. And if you are going to be an accountant, you will, in the future, interact with database. And especially in this town in Bay Area, it is almost a required skill. Okay, so let's take a look first here, the database, the data modeling side. Let me see if this thing works. Let me get my clicker working. Hold on. All right. Okay. So let's consider it a little bit. Now we've been talking about AIS, and we know that the accounting information system is the information system that collects and process and present accounting data. So let's think about accounting data for a little bit. So what does accounting data look like? You can see here, there's traditionally accounting data look like this, right? This is the type of entries that bookkeepers use when they only have a manual system. They write down every transaction, the time of the transaction in this format. So you can see, okay, that's the number, the date, the name, the product, the price, the subtotal. Okay, so as you can see here, a manual system, the old way to keep accounting data may not be very efficient, right? And may be very error prone. It's very easy to make a mistake here. And on top of that, the accounting data like this, it's hard to retrieve the data from this area. I say, okay, I want this record, this record, this record, because they are the customer living in California state. Or I want this person, this person, this person, because they are handled by the same salesperson. It's hard to retrieve data, give it a filter, because everything is static. Okay, so when it comes to presenting the accounting data, the similar issues like this, right? See, this is like, say, Amazon Inc., the consolidated statement of operation. So as you can see here, there are a lot of numbers here. Okay, so imagine if you have to make a statement using the manual data, right? And imagine how many transactions, right, Amazon would have, not just sales, the transaction with their vendor, the transactions with their employees, they all have to be kept somewhere, right? And when it comes to time to make a financial statement, they have to consolidate everything from in the journal entries, every transactions together to make a statement like this. And now you can start to imagine how difficult or what's the scale of the task, right? So that's why computer data, something like this, can be extremely helpful when it comes to keeping accounting data, right? But then we have to think a little bit deeper here. If you were to keep every transaction in one giant table like this, right, there will be a lot of data to track, right? Similar to this here. Oh, you probably have to track the address of the customer, the price of the data, how many things they order. Just think about it, how many columns you would have to have for let's say retail store. That it can be very big. Right. So to get into this idea of data modeling, let's think about the San Francisco State University faculty and student data as an example. Let's think for a second, what will the data look like visually? Right? Okay, you want to place a table here. Okay, Professor Tian Li teach this class at a certain time, and then there's a student taking this class. Right, next row, okay, Professor Li again, because there's another student taking his class, another student taking his class. So as you can see here, the data in our mind, okay, if we want to track the faculty and students and the classes they have taken in a giant table, right, it maybe contains a lot of columns and many rows, right? Consider how many students there are. So let's give it a bit think, right? So what do you think is, if it goes on like this, right? And you will see my name over and over because I teach that many classes, and you will see your name as a student repeated many times over. And consider how many data you have to track. You have to track my data, like, for example, my rank, okay, the time that I teach, my address, my email, and for students, same. There are many things to keep track of. And then you have to track of the student's grade given for this class, and perhaps though the assignment grades, all these, right? So if we were to pile every data in one giant table, there may be problem, because consider whoever get their hands on this data, they can see everything literally, right? Because we are trying to keep every data in one place. You can see perhaps my salary data, the student's grade, they are all in one place, right? So that may not be a very good way to protect the data, because potentially everyone will have access to it, okay? And on top of that, see, to store data like this way may not be very efficient, because we are repeating the same type of information over and over, right? What if my email address were to change, or my physical address were to change, right? In a data like this, right, we will have to look for every occurrence of my name, over my address, to change that. And that can be error prone and inefficient as well. So that's why, if we consider the good data versus bad data, so instead of one table, it is more efficient to use more tables, more than one. Okay, let's keep the data about the faculty member in one place, the data about the student in one place, the information about the classes in one place, right? So we can manage this data in a more efficient way, not just looking at everything in one table, right? So the information about me, my address, my phone number, right, my email can be kept in one place, and the student information about the students can be kept in another place. Okay, so that's what we say here. The data should be grouped accordingly, so it is easier for us to manage. And retrieve data, okay, should be made easier, instead of like earlier we talked about, it's difficult to retrieve the data. And if we keep the data in different places, then perhaps we can retrieve the data easier. Like, for example, if I have an ID number of 111 and another professor of an ID number of 112, and yet another professor have an ID number of 113, right? When a system need my information, let's say my address, right? In a good data system, it should be able to just use the reference number that I have, 111, and then find my address. We don't need to use a big table, list my address every time we need it. Okay, a smart system just see, okay, this is 111's address, 111's address, 111's address. So you only put the reference number there instead of putting the whole address in there. Okay, we just need to make the right reference to the right place for the right person's data. Okay, so that's why I say here there should be a way to reference the data, and the same data, like we said earlier, should never be duplicated, and there should be way to update the data structure without interfering with the data. So for example, if we keep data in many tables, okay, let's say, oh, wow, well, we didn't keep track enough data. We need to track spouse data in order to see whether the spouse need to be on the healthcare plan as well. We need to track sibling, or we need to track the kids data, things like that. So if the data were to change in a good system, we should be able to allow the data to change without changing the data itself. The structure of the data and the actual physical data, right, should be able to be managed separately. Okay, so that's when the data modeling come into play. Data modeling is, okay, so without looking at the physical data, let's structure it first. Okay, so let's think about how a data should look like, how many columns you should have, what kind of data goes inside, and how these data interact or associate with each other. And that's what we mean by the data modeling. So it is a process of creating the logical representation of the structure of the database, so you can see logically how the database works without actually putting data in it. Okay. So this is usually considered the most important task in database development, because without the structure of the data, you cannot even put data in it. Right? Without a good structure of the data, your database just wouldn't work, right? Because you don't know where the data should go or what kind of data it is. Okay, and the database that is used to define and analyze the data requirement need to support the business processes. That's what one of the main important tasks for data modeling as well. Like for example, so if you have a, let's say, a flower store online, okay? So in a flower store, you see, oh, I have a salesperson here, and I have many type of flowers here, and each flower have different prices. Somehow you have to keep that data, right? And you know, okay, each salesperson is supposed to help the customer to wrap the flower according to a certain occasion, right? So let's say, okay, the now it's, what's the occasion? Oh, it's someone's birthday. Okay, there are several flowers this person can recommend, right, based on that occasion. So from the data perspective, oh, we may need to create a table so we can reference certain flowers with certain occasion, right? Yet in the same time, okay, we can see, oh, wow, rose can be used for this occasion, this occasion, this occasion, and certain occasions like birthday, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, Father's Day, right? We can have certain flower associated to this, right? So this way, when we analyze our business requirement, how our business work, we can integrate those rules into the database, right? So when you have a website, let's say Mother's Day promotion, right? The system will be able to pull up all the flowers associated with the Mother's Day and give it the right promotion the business needs. Okay. So when it comes to database, the data modeling part, right, is usually pretty hard. And therefore there are professional data modelers. This all they do, they just model the data, right? But when it comes to accounting data, do you think that those data modelers or those computer guys, they understand accounting processes? No, usually don't. So that's why when it comes to accounting information systems, the accountants have to step in, right? Because in accounting data, the funny part about accounting data goes back to the debit and credit system, right? Remember when you did debit and credit in 100 and 301? Okay, a lot of people think that, oh, who does debit and credits anymore, right? But imagine it is a situation. In accounting, the beauty of debit and credits is, let's say, a change of $500. You pay your employee for $500, right? from the computer perspective, it may be very simple, right? Take $500 out, give it to the employee's hand, right? But from accounting's perspective, it may be very, very different, right? This $500 change may involve many, many accounts, right? It may involve that certain bonus have applied. It may involve that, okay, this $500 salary actually has to go to inventory because this is a type of expense that we call the inventoriable cost. That, okay, you pay this person to squeeze lemon, you pay this person to assemble let's say a tool or assemble a product. If this person's task is associated with manufacturing activity, right? We know that is supposed to go to the inventory account unless that product is sold, right? So you see, this $500 change, even though on the surface of cash change is, okay, I pay $500 to this person. But from accounting records perspective, it's more complicated. There are many, many accounts may be affected, but when it sum everything up, you can see, oh, it's changed to 500. But okay, how is it changed? How did it get to that $500? From the accounting perspective, we need to keep track of it, right? So when it comes to the accounting information system, they're usually much more complicated than a regular system. Just track change, does not track the process, right? From accounting perspective, we got to have a good audit trail, right? A good audit trail will preserve the entire accounting processes, so we can see at which point, what went wrong, or you can see, okay, whether there's certain processes within the change that need to be audited. So when you model the data like this way, you have different tables, and you make sure that they can associate with each other, they have a relation. That's what we call the entity relationship data model. We try to find the entities, like for example, student is an entity, professors is an entity, class is an entity, entity is a thing, right? And we define the relationship, oh, I can teach classes, the students can take classes, they are the relationship. Okay, so the entity relationship data model is the most commonly used logical data model that right now we're using. Okay, it provides an abstract conceptual representation of the structured data. What that means is basically tell you, okay, what the column would look like, okay, how many tables are there, and how they link to each other. That's what it means, the abstract conceptual representation. Instead of looking at the whole data, right? The actual data, we don't even look at it. We just look at the table, empty tables. That's what it means. Okay, it explicitly represents the entities and their relationship in entity relationship data model. And one good thing about the entity relationship data model is this data model is implementation independent. Okay, so once you learn how to do ERD diagram or how to read ERD diagram, you can take this knowledge to Oracle, okay, to Microsoft SQL, to MySQL, to SAP, because all of these relational database, professional databases, they use entity relationship data model. You can have those databases to output the ERD diagram to show you how the data work with this company. Okay, you can ask, when you have a data ERD diagram, you can even import a ERD diagram into the professional database and have the database ready to run. Okay, that's the beauty of it. So that's why I said in the beginning that to learn ERD diagram can be very important and very useful for accounting students, because you get to see, you get how the data would transfer from an abstract to a physical implementation, and you are able to apply this skill to many, many professional environments. Okay, right, so the components of the ERD relationship model or ERD diagram, okay, of course, we have several things here, right? First is the entity. Entity is a thing, or event, a person that the organization's environment is about, or someone want to collect the data about something, right? I want to collect data about the professors, so professor is an entity. I want to collect information about the students. Student can be an entity. And then the attributes. Attributes are the characteristics used to describe the entity. So, for example, what kind of information would you use to describe the professor? Right, the professor's email address, the professor's rank, the professor's department, right? And how about students? Oh, students' phone number, students' ID, right? Student, the classes the student have taken, right? Things like that. You may use those information to describe a student, right? So that's what we call the attribute. Okay, there's also what we call the relationship, how entities relate to each other, associate with each other. And then the last one is what we call the composite entity. This is a little bit difficult to understand, and I will explain to you using certain examples in a little bit after we go through some slides that I introduced to you, and we'll come back to see how a composite entity works. It's quite interesting, really. So let's see the example. Look at this, a customer entity, right? This customer entity have customer name, address, city, state, zip, contact names, phone number. So we know these things are what? Attributes, right? Yeah, that's the attributes. And the whole thing is what we call the customer entity. So this, okay, customer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The customer name is Ajax Manufacturing. The address, some information associated. Then here, okay, this is what we call the instance of the entity. Okay, here one customer here, another customer here. They are different instances of this entity. Okay, so when it comes to relationship, okay, relationship is very interesting. Right, we try to use the relationship to describe how one table associate to next table, or one entity associate with the another entity. So imagine that. Okay, so if you work in a company, right, the company would assign you a company car, right? But the rules for that company car is that you can only have one company car for your first 3 years of employment, right? And after you leave the job, or after 3 years, that's it. You know, you have to get your own car. It's only as a sign-on bonus type of thing, right? So if you were to quit your job, right, within that 3 years, the car is returned, okay, to the dealer. So in this relationship is what we call a one-to-one relationship. Okay, if something were to happen to that car, we know whose car that is. Okay, or if something like looking at you, you know, oh, the employee car is that. Okay, because there's no other, right? That the relationship between you and your employee car in this example is a one-to-one relationship, right? But can it be other relationship? Of course, right? Maybe your business allow one employee to have several cars. Right? Okay. Or maybe okay. I'm sorry. Maybe your company would allow the employee to have not just one more car, but multiple cars in the same time. Okay. So there can be many types of relationship. Like for example, let's take a look at this one in dormitory and student. Right? You say here, this is a very interesting example of let's say one to many example. Right. So we know that one dormitory room can potentially have many students in that room, right? Can register to that room. But in the same time, that dormitory may have no student occupied in that dormitory at all, right? So this is what we call the one-to-many relationship, but that many can be 0, okay? Right? But if we look at the other way around, can one student register to several dormitories? Shouldn't be, right? Okay. Like you, there's only you, one person. There's no like, how do you call that? The doppelganger of you. I try to occupy another dormitory. That wouldn't be fair, right? So this in this example is what we call the one-to-many relationship. Okay. And same thing here, a student to the club. As a student, you can join many clubs, right? And you may join no clubs at all. Okay. All right. So that's what the basic of the relationship look like. So there are one-to-one relationship. Okay. So like for example, you and your student ID. Okay. It's supposed to be one-to-one relationship. You should only have one student ID. And if I see that student ID, I know it's you, right? And if I go ask you, and you can only provide one student ID. So the relationship is explicit relationship, one and one only, right? And one-to-many relationship, like for example, professor can teach many classes. Or like for example, I teach 305, 307, 505. The question is like, can other professor also teach those classes? Right? I can teach many classes, but guess what? There are other professors can also teach 305, right? So the question now becomes, right? If you look at 305, you don't know who might be the teacher because there are other professors may teach that course as well, right? And if you look at me, oh, Professor Lee actually teach many classes, but if you look at the courses, oh, that course may be taught by other professors as well. So let's say if you want to register 305, right? In this situation, you won't be able to identify a particular 305 to register. Is that right? Okay, so let's bring this as an example. Let me show you here. Maybe bring up my notepad. Okay, now. Okay, the relationship I'm talking about here is on this side. We have professors, Prof 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, right? Okay. On this hand, we have classes. Okay, let's say course A, course B, course C, course D, and course E. So the situations here, the professor 111 may be teaching classes A or course C and course E, and professor 114 may be teaching B and E, and professor 115 may be teach E and C. Okay, so in this type of relationship, if you were going to take C per se, right? The problem is now which C? You see, because C can be taught by 111 and C can be taught by 115, right? So you won't be able to identify the exact C, exact 307 you want to take, right? Wouldn't that be a problem? Oh, I want to take 305, but I hate that Professor Lee. He's awful, you know. Nah. Or do you think it's okay that the school just randomly assign you a 305 class? That wouldn't be good either, right? Or vice versa. Let's say I want to take Professor 111's class. But if you look at the data, Professor 111 actually teach A, C, and E. So the question is that which class are you talking about? So in this type of relationship, we call it many-to-many relationship. Okay. In many-to-many relationship, the problem we are looking at is that if we look at this, we are not able to make explicit identification of their interaction, right? Because let's say Professor 111, oh, he teaches many classes. And if you want to take a particular class, class C, or class C is taught by many professors, that's a problem. So if when we make association here, right, it becomes very, very clear. Right, that's called the class instead of class A. Let's make explicit identification of it. In this instance, we have 111A. In this instance, we have 111C. Now it's 111E. And here we have 115C and 115E. So instead of taking, let's say I want to take class C. If you say I'm taking 111C, then we know exactly which C that is. Is the C taught by 111. And here, that's what we call the composite entity. Okay? It makes association of two tables together when there is a many-to-many relationship. Okay? So that's the many-to-many relationship. So many-to-many relationship, there are quite a few of them out there. Let's think about car ownership, right? Okay. So in car ownership, you as a person, in your lifetime, you can buy many cars, right? You can probably have more than one car in the same time. Like for me, I have a Subaru and I have a VW, the e-Golf. It's quite nice. Right. In the same time, if you were to sell the car, right? Okay, is that car going to be destroyed? No, right? That car can potentially, in its own lifetime, be owned by many people, right? After I had it, someone else can have it, then someone else can have it. So in this situation here, we have a very, very interesting scenario, just like what we showed up here with the class, right? Instead of Professor, my eraser is not working. Okay, let me see, let's just restart this. Okay, so let's say this is you. That's you. Sorry about that. And that's the car. Like person. Okay. So person number 1, person number 2, person number 3, person number 4, person number 5, and you have car A, B, C, D, E here. Right. So if you take a look at car A, right? You know, in this entire history of car A could be owned by person number 1, and then person number 3 bought car A, and person number 5 bought car A, however, the person number 1, okay, owns car C and car E as well. Okay, so in this situation here, if something were to happen to a car, right? The problem is whose car, right? If we get into an accident of car A, right? Then we have to find out, no, who does car A belong to? So that's a problem, right? So in this situation, we must have a composite entity behind, in the middle of it, and in this composite entity, we put the person and the car together. Okay, so in real world, do you know what that is called? It's a vehicle registration, right? So when you buy a car, you can register the car so you know this person owns this car. You have VIN ID there, just like the car ABCD we'll talk about, and you have persons, maybe the person's address, social security number, or some other means to identify them. So when you put these 2 and 2 together, you know, oh, this person owns this car at a current period of time, right? But without that, we can't make that explicit identification. Okay, so same thing earlier we already talked about, right? In San Francisco State University, who takes what class, right? Or who teaches what class, right? That's yet another example. You can take many classes, right? You can take 305, 307, right? 308. Isn't it 308? I don't think so. Right? Okay, in the same time, one class can be taken by many students, right? So if I were to give you a grade, right, and I have to find out which class you're taking, right? I have to explicitly identify one particular class in one particular section in order to give you the grade, right? So that explicit identification, that association between the class, right, and the registration, we have to make a composite entity to make that happen, right? Okay, so that's yet another example of a many-to-many relationship. Like, for example, earlier we talked about the flowers and their occasions, maybe yet another example as well. You have many occasions: birthday, right, wedding, Mother's Day, right? But for birthday, you may have many type of flowers. For birthday, I can use what? What can you use for birthday? Quite a bit, right? Like 12 months. So supposedly there at least 12 flowers can be associated with birthdays, right? But yet in the same time, one particular flower, let's say rose, okay, can be used for multiple occasions as well. So if we were to bring up that association table I showed you earlier, okay. So on one hand, we have occasions. On the other hand, we have flowers. Okay, so we have rose, carnation, what else? Lily, what else? I'm not good with flowers. Give me some flowers, some other flowers. Rose, carnation, lily, what else?
Tulip.
Tulip, yeah, tulip. Okay, let's do tulip. All right. So we have occasions here: birthday, wedding, and graduation. Okay. So when there's a many-to-many relationship over here, all right, let's see, like that, like that. So if you look at an occasion, birthday, the problem is, oh, there are so many flowers can be used for this birthday occasion. And then look at this side, a rose can be used for multiple occasions as well. So it's difficult to find the explicit identification of them, right? What is this flower for that occasion, so we can make the right billing, right? Okay, so that's yet another example. It's okay. So now let me ask you this. Okay, let's do an exercise. So let me ask you this relationship question. So how about husband and wife? What kind of relationship from the data perspective should it be? Right, so you guys all here, right? We have several options, right? So one-to-one relationship, raise your hand. And what? How many? Let me see. Raise your hand. Keep your hand raised so I can see that how many you think it should be one-to-one relationship. I'm not joking. I'm really serious about it. One-to-one relationship. You think between husband and wife should be one-to-one relationship? Wow. Okay, good. That's almost all of you. How about one-to-many? No? Oh, okay, ish. Right? But one-to-many, what do you think? One-to-many is it man to woman, one-to-many, or woman to man, one-to-many? Which one? No, you're not gonna say.
Either way.
Either way.
Yeah.
Okay, it's interesting. How about many to many? Anybody vote for many to many? Husband and wife should be many to many. Don't laugh. This is a real question. Don't laugh. Well, who's that? That's weird. Joshua, you think many to many should be allowed?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
It could work. Interesting.
Yeah, as long as they're both accepting of that type of lifestyle, I think it should be okay.
Okay, so let's think about this from data perspective, eh? Right. So if you divorce, can you get remarried? You can.
Yes.
All right. So are you gonna say, okay, I'm gonna marry you, but if I divorce you, you can't marry no more. Me and only me. Well, does that work? It's kind of it's not very humane, is it? Right? Okay, well, vice versa. If you say one to many relationship, okay, I can marry multiple wives, but if I divorce one of them, that's it. They are done. They are no good. Or the other way around is like, let's say a woman can have multiple husbands, but upon the time that the woman say, I don't need you no more, and he get chopped, right? Okay. So actually, from the data perspective, the relationship between husband and wife is a many-to-many relationship from data perspective. So, Joshua, yeah. Why? Let's bring up this our data table again over here. Find out who married who, right? Okay, over here. So this is husband and this is wife, right? So husband number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wife A, B, C, D, E, F. All right. So if I look at husband 1, hey, who's your wife? You said, which one? Because in my lifetime, this person may have married to A, may married to C, and may married to F, right? You can't explicitly identify and say, oh, 1, your wife must be A and only A, right? Okay, yeah, for a period of time that may work, but from the data perspective, it doesn't work that way. The explicit identification means that the entire lifetime of this entity, right, can be explicitly identified to another, right? So same thing, B, originally married to 2, but 2 is a wife beater, no. So B divorced this loser and married husband 4 and live happily ever after. Right. So in this situation, and how do we identify their association? What document do we use? Marriage license, right? Your marriage certificate. It puts husband and wife together and the date of their holy matrimony. Now, how many of you married here? Let me see. Raise your hand. I am married. I have 3 kids. My oldest is already 15. No, he's 17 now. Oh shoot, I skipped 2 years. Yeah. So he's preparing for university. Can you imagine that he's so old already? Wow. Okay. Yeah. See, so you understand the concept of holy matrimony. But would you like to be like, oh yeah, if something were to happen, if I were to pass away, I want my wife to be happy. No, come on, find another person, live happily. Don't just think about me like, I'm not gonna be a ghost lingering around the house, right? Because you can't marry no one else. I'm gonna haunt you. Nah, shouldn't be like that. Right. So that's the idea of many-to-many relationship. Okay. So it's very, very important for you to understand many-to-many relationship and how they work. Because trust me, right? Even computer guys, those people who try to learn database, the many-to-many relationship could be a struggle in the beginning, right? What is many-to-many relationship? But in the real world, many-to-many relationship exists almost everywhere, right? Okay. It's quite interesting.
I
All
have
right.
a quick question.
Yeah. Hey, Ray?
So, yeah, even if they get a divorce, like the relationship of husband and wife, like it's now a new relationship of like ex-husband and ex-wife, it's still like in the database classified as a husband and wife relationship?
No, that means the relationship existed in some time. So you will have an attribute, the time of marriage, the time of divorce, right? So you want to find this person, who is this person married to, right? You want this person's ID, and a time frame. So you know at this point of time who is married to who, right? But if you want to find out who's married to who 10 years ago, if that data is erased, that data is changed, we won't be able to find that out. You see? So
Okay,
this
yeah.
person married to this person must exist somewhere in the data, right? It cannot simply be changed, right? See?
Okay, yeah,
Right.
I get it. Thank you.
Right. So that is if changing the data, if that data is like you said, if changing the data can be allowed, then there wouldn't be any record in the database left, right? Who I married to 10 years ago, right? Okay. But good question though. It's very interesting. Right? So when you get married eventually, tell your husband, my professor said that it should be a many-to-many relationship. Don't
Okay, will do.
Yeah. But no guarantees what's going to happen though. All right. So if we were to do entity relationship, now we understand what they are. Visually, this is what they look like. Entity look like rectangular, and relationship is a diamond shape. The composite entity, when we put two entities together, right? In the middle of it is what we call the composite entity. So let me bring up my little window again. So husband is an entity, wife is an entity. The marriage license, the marriage certificate is what we call a composite entity. That's how it works. And inside the composite entity, what do we track? Oh, husband's name, 1 here, wife's name, A here. And of course, like Ray's question earlier, we want to see this marriage certificate, the start date and the end date. Right? With all this information, we can explicitly identify who married to whom at what time. And this data will always be there. Okay? Good. Should close this window. Right. So the next thing is putting them together visually. Let's see. Put entities like this: instructors, students, and courses, right? And instructors, I can I can advise students. This is a relationship, and that's the only relationship should be. Okay, and then instructor can teach courses. Okay, student can take courses. But the problem here, do you see that? Is a student can take multiple courses, one-to-many relationship. In the same time, the course can be taken by many students. So in order to explicitly identify which student take what class, we got to have an enrollment here. That's a composite entity, right? So we can have student 111 takes 305, student 112 305. So if I want to give you grade for this 307, right? Oh, 307. But there are so many students taking 307. What do? I need your student ID, right? And I need a class in order to make that explicit identification and to give you a grade. Okay. Otherwise, okay, for what class? For which student? We can't identify that. That would be a problem. And then after that, you put them together with attributes, right? These all are oval shapes. They are attributes, right? So for the attribute that's underlined here, they are the identifying attribute. Like for example, student ID, instructor ID, they are the key to that entity. So 111, you know who that is. 112, you know who that is. Okay, so that's the ERD diagram. So that's when it comes to data modeling, there are more. There's no way that you can cover this big topic, right, in just 1 hour. But the most important thing in data modeling is to understand data relationship. What is one-to-one, what is one-to-many, and what is many-to-many. And that's what we accomplished in the first hour. So we'll come back, we'll take a break, and come back 2:20. Is that fine? 2:20? And we'll move on to the next subject. All right. So far, before you guys go, is it hard to track this online lesson? Is it hard to pay attention to? Is it okay?
I'm just a little confused on. I'm trying to write and like composite like some notes, but I'm not sure exactly what will be on the test because it seems to be all like just you talking, but I'm not sure what exactly I should write down.
Okay. After the class, I will give you the handout and study guide, right? And with that, you can go through the textbook, right? The text,
Yeah, okay, sure.
yeah. I won't test you too much to you are not an IT guy, so I'm not gonna test you that, right? So when it comes to test, it won't be more than what is on the slides or what's on the textbook. I won't exceed that, never. Okay, so you don't need to say that I need to go find some computer book to study this in order to take the exam. No, it will only come from either lecture or slide or textbook. Okay, I can guarantee that you will never exceed, right, what's being covered. Okay, and you will have the lecture slides and also lecture notes, right? I usually do that. Those who took my 507 or other classes, you know how it works. Okay, so see you. Let's just say 15 then. Oh, no, 25, because now it's 2:15 already. I'll see you in 25. Right. Okay, let's come back to class. All right, so let me have the chat window on so I can track what people are saying here. All right, so were you guys able to hear the music earlier from my place? Because later we're gonna see a video, so I want to test that you guys can actually hear the audio. All right, were you guys able to hear that audio, the music?
I was not able to hear you, sir.
Oh, really? Huh. Okay. That may be a problem. Okay, let me see. Let me test it again, okay? All right, so this may be a problem because later we have to show a video. So if you can't hear the audio, we may have to have you guys watch the video individually instead of I stream the video to everyone. Okay, so I will figure out how to stream a the video and the audio to you after today's class. I don't know how this thing works. You can get the audio from the mic, but not the audio from my desktop. So I'll try to figure that out. Okay, so the next section, this section here, it's from chapter 4. We're going to explore the relational database and the language that is used to communicate with the relational database called SQL. Okay. All right, so the relational database, if you want to look at it, it sort of look like this, right? So I think you guys be able to see it. So you have a purchase table here, this transaction, okay, and the customer ID and product ID and purchase date. So over here, you have several references, right? So if I want to find out who bought what, right? I don't need to put everything together on this purchase table like we discussed earlier, right? I don't need to put everything in the one table. I just need to put the reference there, right? So for example, for transaction 1112, who got it? Customer 24221. And I can use this 24221 to make that reference. Then I know it's actually Bob. And I will know who to send it to. The address is 123 East Street. Okay? So in this purchase table, I don't need to keep track of everything. I just need to track the reference. And if the relationship is identified, we can always find the information that we need, right? So over here, as you can see, right, the data is kept quite efficiently. So if I were to change Bob's address, I only need to change it here. The same information is only kept in one place. Okay, so that's the very essence of what we call a relational database. And how these relationships are identified, we learned earlier, right? Is from that ERD diagram. We identify what to keep in each table, what are the attributes of this entity, and then how they relate to each other. Okay, so a database is basically a collection of related data, okay, for various uses. Like for example, if you want to find that, say, who bought what, or what flower to use in what occasion, who take what classes, right? They can all be kept in a relational database. In this day and age, almost every data now is kept in some kind of database, and the relational database or the model that used to define the data, it's called the relational data model, is the most commonly used one. Okay, so last hour we discussed the ERD diagram is implementation independent. You can take one ERD diagram to many relational database, and this is how they look like. In ERD diagram, an entity, okay, is implemented in relational database as a table. Okay, an attribute is called a field, right? An identifying attribute for that particular entity is called a primary key. Okay, that's basically how it works. So when you look at this here, a database here, you can always see, oh, okay, this is a database table. If we were to talk about in entity relationship diagrams of the vernacular, we know that's called an entity. Okay, but when it comes to keeping the data, then there's an issue, right? We have to tell the database what the data actually is, right? So for example here, if you put your, let's say the year of birth, it's 1999, 1998, right? And how would you define this number? How would you want to keep this number? Do you want this number to be typed as like 1999 in English words or the number 1999? Okay, even though when you type it as number 1999, are they supposed to be text or are they to be the like mathematical numbers, right? Because this matters. If we were to keep text, right? If we were to keep number in a text form, this may happen. Let me show you. Okay. Okay. Let's say if we were to keep a data, a pricing data, okay, we keep this product number 1, product number 2, product number 3, product number 1 data is $10, this is $5, this is $6, right? If we mistaken this as text, what happens when you add product number 1's price and product number 2's price? 10 plus 5 wouldn't be 15. It would be 105. Okay, so it is very important when you in ERD diagram, not only you tell how this data should be structured. When it's implemented into database, you actually have to tell the database what this data actually is. Is it text? Is it integer numbers? Okay. If it is decimal numbers, and then you have to tell the system how many decimal points are you planning to keep. Imagine a banking system, right? Okay, there are decimal points. Okay, if those decimal points are mismanaged or rounded up wrong, right, they may be opportunity to commit fraud because somebody can always slice, let's say, 1/10 of the decimal point and add them all up together. When you have thousands, millions, okay, of records of transactions together, those 1/10 or 1/11 of a decimal point may add up to some money, right? If you ever seen a movie called Office Space, yeah, it's a very interesting comedy, but go look at that. It's basically tell you how they executed something like this, a salami attack of a system, right? So in banking, right, if you were to keep a number, you have to tell that database to keep that decimal point, and in current rule in the United States is 1/16, the 16th place of the decimal point, right? So that's what we called a data dictionary. You tell the data, you tell the database what that data actually is. Is it an image? That's a binary data? Is it text? If it is text, how big the text is supposed to be? Do you limit the space? If it is a number, what kind of number is it, right? Is it an integer number, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Okay, or is it a number with decimal points? Okay, and then you can allow those type of data to have certain rules to it, right? Let's say in this field, I would only allow number, right? Or this field only allow 5 characters, or number and 5 characters. What is that? Zip code, right? Okay. So when people put in the number something else, something other than that 5 numbers and 5 digits, the database will know, oh, this is wrong. It's not supposed to be here. Okay, so that's what the data dictionary is for. And when it comes to managing the database, okay, we use a system called DBMS. the database management system, okay, to manage the database. A relational database, usually it's something called SQL. It keeps all the data, right? But how to manage the data, you still need some type of interface to interface with this database, and that's what we call DBMS. And the DBMS, you can manage what kind of application can access this database, what kind of users or the users privilege to access this database. Like, for example, if we were to keep San Francisco University, faculty and students' data in this database, certain data is supposed to be privileged, right? Certain data should be limited to some users only. So a student, when you log on to this database, yes, you can see your grade, but then you should not be able to change your grade, or you shouldn't be able to see other students' grade. For me, yes, I can see your grade, okay, but I should be able to see the grade of the student that took my class. I should not be able to modify the grade if that class is taught by another professor, right? So those rules, right, are managed by this, what we call DBMS. And to work the database, or to manage the DBMS, usually is someone called database administrator. It is a very nice job. You basically sit in front of the computer all day long and manage the data, okay, and maybe see if the data model need to be changed a bit, okay, maybe a user need to be revoked, things like that. But basically the job is quite boring, just sit there all day long, but it's really well paid. That's what they do. They just manage the data, manage the model of the data, and there are quite a few of them, like for example, SAP, IBM, Oracle, right? If you're interested in that, you can always try to get the certificate. And on top of your accounting certification, this can be very, very powerful. That you not only you know accounting, you understand the data, you can manipulate the data. And database administrator, a good one, right? Let's say somebody who's specialized in Microsoft SQL database, and there are levels of certificate you can get, right? But the starting job of database administrator is about like I think 150 here in the Bay Area. It's a very high-paying job. Okay, so if we take a look at the database, the physical view, the actual data view, look like this, right? So the row of data over here, each row of data is called a record of data. Okay, it can also be called as a tuple of data, right? And each column here is called a field. Okay, the ID field, the name field, the beverage type field, okay, a type of this drink, whether it's caffeinated or not, a field, and this entire thing here is the table. Okay, so that's the physical view of the data. It still can look like a Excel table somehow, but the difference is that the mechanism here, right, they have a relationship defined between tables in an actual relational database. Okay, so earlier in the beginning of this class, we talked about relationship between tables, and you can see an example of that, right? And the last hour, we also talked about the association, the references of different entities. And in the relational database, they are implemented this way. Okay, so there are several recordings here that say Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift have made several recordings, right? Many albums, right? So out of those albums, some are singles, and if you guys know that Taylor Swift started with the country, right? She was a country singer, so that genre was in country, and then she moved to pop and become much more successful. And so let's say if you take a particular Taylor Swift album, right, you wouldn't be able to know what that genre really is, until you have some more information. When is it released? Okay, what album's name is it? Right, and just like an earlier example of the making references, so one recording, right, you keep track of the album ID, the artist ID, the genre ID over here at the recording table, right? If you want to make references here, okay, this artist ID, okay, I'll use this as a reference point over here. So let's say the Taylor Swift here, you can find Taylor Swift's ID, and from that point on, over here, you can find this ID's name. Oh, it's actually Taylor Swift. Now you can find her picture of her biography kept at this artist table. Okay, over here, same thing, genre. You can have a different genre, the genre ID 1, pop, genre ID 2, country, genre ID 3, new age, so forth, right? So over here, you can see here, this defines relationship. One artist could potentially have many recordings, okay? And same thing here, one genre contains many recordings, right? So the thing here, what we call it, this artist ID here is the identifying attribute of the instance of the entity here, and that is called the primary key, okay? Used to identify a unique instance of this table, yeah? So you know 111 is Taylor Swift, right? And the name and the address and the other information, other attributes. And genre over here. So inside this recording here, if you put this reference number over here, you should be able to find this information. So over here, we know the artist ID is the primary key. But when this primary key is used in another table as a reference point, that is called a foreign key. Okay, so this recording table here has its own key. And in this example, the album ID, okay, is the primary key of this recording table. But we are using artist ID in this table here as a reference point. Okay, so that's why we call it a foreign key. So earlier, last hour, we used the example of husband and wife. If we use the same graph here, let's say this over here is husband and this over here is wife. And over here, as a many-to-many relationship, we know this is the marriage certificate, right? Okay, so we will have husband ID here, wife ID here. They are served as a reference point. So that's why they are called a foreign key. But in the same time, this particular marriage license or marriage certificate has its own ID as well. So in this situation, you can see that everything can be explicitly identified this way. Right? If we want to find information, there's a path that we can go to find that particular information. Okay, so that's the beauty of a relational database. Okay, so this example here is a bigger example of what we saw earlier. Right, so here you have a customer table and you have a sales table, okay, and you have a product table. So if we were to look at the sales table, we see invoice number, customer ID, the date, and product number. So if I want to see, okay, what Mr. Wagstaff purchased, can we find out what did Mr. Wagstaff purchase? Over here, right? Mr. Wagstaff 1238 made two purchases, 13131 and 13945. Okay, and then the product ID here is 1233 1334. So what are those products? Here, Apple iPhone 5G, and then Motorola Droid. You see, that's how relational database work. You use references point to find the information that you need. So with these information, you can use it to build a receipt, right? Or an invoice, right? Or a, let's say, when you want to send out the goods, you have a package list, right? You know where the item's supposed to be sent to, and at the end of the month, you are able to tally up all the sales together and maybe filter, oh, how much sales did we do for Mr. Waxup, and how many sales that we did for a particular product, right? So that's what relationship database is used for. So how to retrieve data, or how to enter the data, how to interact with the database, okay, there must be a way to do that, right? There must be a way to, you can tell the database, right, how to get those data and what data to get. And that's what we call here the structured query language, SQL. Okay. SQL, pronounced as just like the word SQL. It stands for Structured Query Language. It's designed to be a high-level computer language. That means that this type of language can be easily understood by a human being. It's a high-level language. And in comparison to a low-level computer language, a machine language per se, that's composed to 1 and 0, 1 and 0. You wouldn't be able to understand if I present to you a series of 1 and 0, 1 and 0. It's hard to understand, okay? Because that's a low-level computer language meant for computers. But when it comes to a high-level language like SQL, it's meant to be designed for human to read. So we can read it, we can construct the queries easily, and to interact with the database. So for the next few slides, we're going to practice how to write some SQL script or SQL queries to interact with the database. This SQL language is not very hard. It can get hard, right? But the basic of it is surprisingly simple. And as an accounting student nowadays, you should be able to understand how to read and write simple query languages, right? And it will be in the midterm, some simple query language. It will not go outside the scope of this lecture, but you should expect to see some query languages in your midterm. Okay, so every SQL query will start with these two clauses. It's very simple. It's called the select and the from. All right. So if I look at a table, the information that I want, okay, is the name and the ID, okay, and the address. So how SQL language work is very simple. Let's say, okay, I want this information. I want select the name, the ID, and something else, like say address, right? The next one is from. Intuitively, we know from what? From a table, right? So if you want information related to a product, let's say product ID, product price, right? And product description, and you will say, oh, select these three things from that table, right? So that's all. That's every SQL query. Always start with this. Select something from whatever table. So that's what it looks like. Let's do an example. So given the attributes in this customer table, how do you use a query to find the salesperson for each customer? Okay, so we have a customer table. Now we need to find the salesperson for a particular customer. So how do we do that? We use select customer number, name, and SP number, you see, because if we find the SP number, we find the salesperson, right? From what? Customer, right? So that's it. Select customer number, comma, name, comma, SP. You can see here, there's nothing else here because the SQL query here, or what you see here, feels like a sentence. And this sentence ends with a semicolon, right? Okay, and you use this here in all caps here, that's the clause. So kind of like an English language, right? You have clause in it, and there's some certain structure. You use a comma to separate things or semicolon to separate things. So a full query works like this. You have clause, and now we just deal with this two very simple clause here. Select these three things from customer, semicolon. That's it. So the clause in SQL query is always all caps over here. Okay, so the computer look at it, the computer know, oh, okay, this is the clause. So if you do this way, it will come back like this. Oh, customer number and name and SB number, because that's the three things that we want out of this table, right? We didn't need this account receivable amount, right? So we select these three things, 1, 2, and 3 from the customer table. Okay, so that's the very, very basic of a SQL statement. Next, let's try to add another clause. This clause is called where. Okay, so the where clause is very, very useful. It specifies a filtering condition that must be met before it can be shown to you. So let's say this example here, over here, you can use it. If we look at this customer table, if you want the information or the customer that has been held by this E10 person, you can filter it. Or you want that's an AR amount of over 1,000, you can filter it. So how do you filter it is using this where clause. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. How do you retrieve all cash receipt information for customer C2 from this cash receipt table? So we have this customer number here, C2, C2, C2. Okay, and there's other information here, but we don't care about other information. We only want C2, right? So this is a place where we use where clause. So you see, what we're looking at is a relatively small table. Okay, but if you imagine, right, a big company, right, with large amount of a transaction, right, without this type of where clause, right, it can be very, very difficult to find the information, right? Imagine that if you open up an Excel spreadsheet with the millions of rows of record, and you try to find, let's say, C2 inside it, you will have to Control F and find or filter, and it's cumbersome, right? So SQL allow you to do that very, very quickly. No, within a fraction of a second, you will be able to filter the data and then get only what you want. So based on what we learned, we know we can select the information, right? And in this case, we want information just customer C2 only, but I want every column, right? I want every field here, right? But just C2. I don't want anything else. We know we can select, right? Okay. But like I said, I want everything, every column. Is there any way to say that I want everything here? Okay, so for most of us nowadays, especially you guys use computer quite often, you know there's a wildcard, right, character you can use. It's a star, right? So that's what we see here. Select everything. Right. I want every column. Right. Look at this here. This sentence hasn't ended yet. Right, so we don't need we don't need a comma here. No. Okay, and then from cash receipt table. Okay, and this query, this sentence, isn't finished yet, right? Because we want add filtering condition into it, right? So next one you know is where, right? Where customer number equals to C2 and semicolon. Okay, that's it. That's the end of this sentence. Okay, and so for this three thing here, select from where, we will get this table. Only C2 is shown. Okay, nothing else, and it will give us every field over here. That's the where clause. Allow you to filter the information that you need. All right. So next thing we needed to think about is how do we combine information from more than one table? Let's say two tables. Because you see earlier, when we look at this example here, okay, yes, we have a sales table, right? But the information inside the sales table is just their ID. Not good enough. We only have the reference number, but not the information that is referenced, right? So potentially, if we want a receipt that contains the customer name, date of purchase, and actual product name instead of product number, then we have to combine information from multiple tables, right? And to give us the view of that information. So that's when we use this feature to combine, to select information from 2 or more tables. Okay, so how do we do that then? Let's take a look. So assume that you would like to use a query to find the salesperson for each customer, and you would like to show their name of the person as part of the result. So now you have customer table here. Okay, and the customers tables are the assigned salesperson. Okay, and over here you have a salesperson table with the salesperson's ID and salesperson's name. From this, we can manually see, right? E10, who's E10? Howard, right? And who's E12? Patty, right? Yeah, we can do that quite easily, right? Over this way. And what we are asking the SQL, or the database to do is exactly what we just did. You know, put them together. You know, E2 is actually E10 is actually Howard, and E12 is actually Patty. And I just put them together and they show me their name. So the SQL statement look like this. I want these information: customer number, the customer name, the account receivable amount, the SP number, and the SP name, the salesperson and salesperson's name, right? Oh, you see, I want this information, but we already know this information comes from not just 1, but 2 tables, right? Because the SP name comes from the salesperson table. So how do we make the select? Select from these 2 tables. See, customer and salesperson, right? And how do we make that association, that reference? Is this where customer.sp over here equals to salesperson.sp, right? So this is actually the line that make up this E12 equals to E12, we have Patty. E10 equals to E10, we have Howard, right? That's how we put 2 and the 2 together. So for this, we will get this result, right? E12 Patty, E10 Howard, E99 David, E10 Howard, right? It's pretty easy, quite interesting. Next, group by. Group by clause is very useful. So based on this example here, you see Howard exists multiple times here, right? But imagine that scenario, you want the entire amount, right? Howard has ordered in a period of time. Don't give me this 1 by 1, just give me the total amount. And SQL is powerful to that point that SQL can run arithmetic operations for you and show you, potentially show you a result of Patty, Howard, and David, right? Instead of just have Howard over and over, just add it up for me. And that's when you use the group by clause. Group something together, right? So use this example, refer to the cash receipt table in example number 2, assuming that you want to know the total cash receipt amount from each customer, not just 1, each customer. Okay, you can use the following SQL command to get the result. Let's go back to example number 2 and take a look at it. All right, here. Okay, so we want the result of each customer. Oh, there's a C2 here and a C1 here and a C5 here, and I want their total amount. So from here we can see C2 is 10,000 plus 1666 and plus 1669, right? Okay, so I'll ask SQL to do that instead of output this table and somebody to add it up manually. So how do we do that in SQL? Look. Group by, select customer, right? And then I ask the SQL to do a mathematical operation, sum the amount together, okay, from the cash receipt table, and group by the customer number. Now this is the condition. Group customer number together. So we know this is C1, C2, and C5, right? Okay. Okay. So then you will get this result, the customer number and the sum of the amount. Okay. That will get you only this. Okay. So these are the basics of SQL statement. Of course, you can have more feature in here. Select customer number and sum from whatever. You can give where, right? Let's say where the sum amount is greater than 50,000. Then in that case, then you will see the amount only greater than 50,000 to show up. Okay, so when you combine all these clauses together, right, you can filter, you can view the data, and you can make reference to the data very, very quickly and very, very easily. And that's basically how SQL works, right? Okay, and to know SQL is a very powerful tool for an accounting student. Very extremely powerful, right? If you go ahead to interview for any kind of tech company, right? And if they know that you understand SQL, you can read the SQL statement, that basically means that you are able to work with a database person. You are able to work with the AIS system that use SQL as database. And the type of company use SQL, they tend to be larger, more organized, right? And it's last year we had a student come back, and there's a student who graduated from our school, end up working in Google, right, as their Google's accountant. So the person came back, and the student asked, what advice can you give us? What kind of skill that we should have? And that person said, SQL. You have to understand SQL. Okay. So what we go through here is a very, very simple set of SQL statement, but those basics already allow you to read the majority of the SQL queries out there. Okay, and what you need to do, it's just practice these several examples here, and the midterm, I may show you a table like this, and ask you to select the right statement, or vice versa, give you the SQL statement and ask you to choose the right result. Okay, so it's not gonna be I give you a blank piece of paper and ask you to write a SQL statement from ground up. No. It's multiple choices. Either choose the right statement or choose the right result. Okay, or choose the right clause to use. Right? Okay, so that's basically what it is. So okay, I want to give us more time to work on our project. So we will come back in 10 minutes. Come back 3:15, and we will get into our AIS project. We're gonna be covering 2 lectures in our AIS project today. And how we set up today is I already assigned the groups. I hope you guys had the opportunity to talk to each other, exchange number, and also think about what kind of project you want to do, right? And after we break out to the groups, I can hop in and out of each group. And the other thing is I have set the Zoom meeting ID and this one, okay, and to be different from my next class. So if you want to stay in the break room, right, and keep working on your project, you can, right? But however, I also encourage you to set up your own Zoom meeting ID, right? So you can work over the weekend, right? Okay, right? Is that okay? So let's come back in 3:15. I hope I can fix this audio issue when I come back. Great, thank you. Get ice on there. Okay, let me try to. All right, let me try to share to see if you guys can hear the audio again. Okay, the music from the background. Let me see. I don't know what to do. And I can't see my. My meeting control is gone. What did you guys see on my screen?
The slide?
The slide, just the slides, or did you see me?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you can see me. All right, good. So it's back to normal, I guess. But my meeting control is gone. This is so frustrating.
It will show if you start sharing your screen. If you're sharing your screen, your presentation mode doesn't show.
Okay. I can't control my. All right. Okay. All right. Let me. Sorry about that. It's so. All right. Are you guys seeing the slides?
Not anymore.
You didn't see the slides? Oh my God.
I can.
Can you guys see the slides?
Yep. Yeah.
Right beside me? Oh,
yep.
Okay. Good. Right. Okay. So this hour we're going to talk about how to start an actual AIS project. Okay, so assuming that now you have an idea, okay, you want to start an AIS project in your organization or in your company, or you want to propose something that supposedly will revolutionize the sales process, or you're proposing a new customer relationship management AIS. Okay, you have a project, you want to start to do it. How do you go about doing it? How do you make sure that you will have the authority to get people to work? Because a lot of times when starting a project in a company, when you want to do something, it's not just as easy as say, oh, let's do this. You need the authority to start it, and you need to provide a justification why this is needed. Okay, so it's not just somebody to do that, and then okay, we'll just start doing it. Let's bang up together. Let's get some time. No, people in the organization, they have their job. You have your full-time job, 9 to 5. You have to do certain things, right? So if you want to devote some time to start an AIS project, to work on an AIS project, you must be able to have the authority, right? And also have the resources, right? And you can let the manager or let the upper management know what this project is actually about. So you're not just going off on your own, try to start things like a little cowboy. No. So that's why we're talking about here, how to start a project. The first thing we're going to talk about is the project charter, the first unit you have to do. So what is project charter then? Okay, and first we need to think about it. How is a project justified? Okay, what are the reasons why that you have to start an AIS project? It may be market demand, or there's certain segment of the market that are underserved, okay, that you cannot reach. You find out, what's going on? Okay, but now, there's our software our company are not serving, let's say, customer in the Asia region, so you may want to start an AIS just for that market segment. Okay, maybe business needs. Okay, let's say if your company want to push a franchise idea, you want your customers as the franchisee to be able to manage the franchise, to order stuff from the franchise. Like for example, if you do a Domino's pizza, right, you should be able to order things from Domino only. Okay, Domino have to authorize certain goods to be sent to you. Or pizza boxes should be this standard, the cheese should be this standard. So you may need a specialized AIS software just to serve the franchisee. Okay, or sometimes the business needs maybe expansion, the main business needs maybe quality assurance. Okay, so you maybe can provide a justification for that, right? And maybe it's customer requests, like for example, the customer, as an Amazon customer, right? The customer may want to know exactly when the goods will be delivered, or where is it, and how many people are ahead of me, right, to get these goods delivered, right? Recently, there are more and more like if the goods are actually delivered by Amazon personnel, you are able to track. Have you guys noticed that? That they will tell you how many delivery points are ahead of you, so you can anticipate, right, when the goods are coming in. So sometimes customer may request certain features, right, certain capability for your AIS to deliver, right? And sometimes maybe the new technology advancements. Okay, now we have drones, right? Oh, we have little robots. We have RFID devices. Okay, like yesterday, the day before yesterday, we talked about using a robot to curate the inventories in a warehouse, right? So the technology of RFID and the technology of robots allow us to do that. So we don't need to use actual human or manually count the inventory anymore. And things like, for example, now we talk a lot about it is AI, right? Okay, so with the advancement of AI, how can we use the capability of the AI and integrate it to AIS? Like for example, to have AI determine how much a customer can afford, right, to pay on a loan, right? So, like for example, credit granting decisions, right, can be perhaps done by the AI instead of a human, right, to see whether a certain credit to be granted. Okay, and sometimes it may be a legal or compliance requirement. For example, there may be legal compliance requirement to implement the carbon trading scheme, right? Like in the carbon trading scheme that, do you guys know carbon trading scheme? It's quite interesting. Let's say in your production process, it doesn't really matter what you're making. Even if you are providing services, the goods and services provided can result in carbon gas, the emission. So if you're making, let's say, a computer, right, in the carbon trading scheme, that we'll figure out that to make a computer monitor, right, you are responsible for this set of carbon gas emission. Okay, and carbon trading scheme is that it's said this way, that it gives each company a quota. Okay, you have, let's say, 2,000 tons of CO2 that you can produce in your production schedule. Right. So if you need more, you have to trade it with another company. You have to buy that. So in this situation, if there's a legal requirement or compliance requirement to track carbon emission, then we need to know exactly what our production is like, right? And how does this production volume translate to carbon gas emission? And therefore, we can implement, right, not just the accounting information system, but the accounting information to manage the carbon emission, to trade the carbon emission with the other company as well. Okay, so the last one, usually it's probably the most difficult one, is social needs. Okay, like for example, very, very early on, right, that when Facebook just started, very few people see the value in Facebook, right? And for the longest time, right, Facebook wasn't making any money at all. But what Facebook addressed is a social need for people to share information, right? To have little online community together, right? And this type of information system, like for example, like Facebook or like Uber, right? They were able to explore new social needs and and this type of software or this type of project that utilize social needs usually can result in revolutionary change in how business is done. Like for example, do you guys familiar with the things called Meals on Wheels? You know, you've heard of it, right? And so imagine that if there is an AIS system that can manage Meals on Wheels using some kind of app or some kind of website, right, to fulfill that social need to help people, right? Yesterday we talked about a student's project. They're talking about picking up poop in the street of San Francisco. Well, that's a good social need, right? They are employing the same mechanism of that, say, the Uber system, or would snap a picture, like just like Instagram. You take a picture and then immediately the image is shared to the community and people can see where exactly that picture is taken, right? And they can descend upon that pile of whatever and clean it up. That's a good example of a social need as well. So when you start thinking about AIS project, the first thing is to think, how is your AIS justified? Is it because business need, customer demand, market demand, right? Or technology advances? Think about it, justify it. The justification, once is fulfilled, okay, and the project is formally initiated, is something we call the project charter, okay? So without thinking about it, the project charter, without looking at it, let's explore the idea. What does the word charter mean to you? Charter. Let's say I charter a boat out to San Francisco Bay and do some fishing, right? Charter, the word charter. Or for example, sometimes you see a word like chartered school, right? And in Canada, the CPA is called the chartered accountant, right? Charter. What does that mean, charter? It implies a level of authority, okay? That you are granted a certain authority to do things. When you charter the boat, right, you have the authority to use that boat, to tell that captain to go there, go where. Okay, if you run a chartered school, you have the authority to design your curriculum, right? So that's what the word charter imply. And in project charter, it means the same thing, right? When you have a project charter, that means that you have the authority to tell people to do certain things. You can say, oh, my charter is started. I should have the authority to get resources from the sales department. I should have resources to tell the HR department, give me a few more people. I should have the authority to engage with third-party contractor if I need programmers. So that's what a charter means. The charter must contain a basic set of information. Like, for example, earlier we talked about the justification, right? It should be in it. So whoever read this charter or understand, oh, what's the justification behind this AIS project? Okay. And it should have what is to be done in a very, very high level. Oh, you're going to start an AIS project. Now, what does the AIS do? Right? To enhance sales, right? To allow customer exchange information, or to track inventory, right? Or to deliver goods, right? What is to be done for this AIS in a very high level view? Or who are the people that are responsible for this, right? Maybe you want to start this charter the main people responsible for this. Who is the project manager? Or we are going to outsource the programming to third party, or is going to be done in-house. Give the person who read this project charter a general overview. Okay, what is going to be involved? Who is going to be involved? And why are we doing it? These are the type of basic information that you need to be in it. And last, who authorized to do this? Imagine if you just start an AIS project authorized by yourself, right? You won't be able to have the authority to go ahead and in your organization to ask other people to do things. But if you work in Apple, let's say your project is actually authorized by Steve Jobs himself before he passed away. Oh, then this project probably have a lot of weight to it, right? When you go out and ask other people's collaboration, right? Or when you go out and ask for resources, you can get it done much, much easier. So AIS project, when you think about it, right? It's not something that we just put together very casually. No, right? As an accountant, we do things seriously. And these are the sort of things that has to be there. We have to show the justification. We have to show that there are authority, right? This project is authorized. It's not just somebody running around doing different things. So what is a project charter? It is not a full project management plan. No, you don't put the full plan when you're just showing a charter, because in the charter, you just want to show a very high level bird's eye view. You don't even know what's the detail at this point yet. Okay, so it does not specify any detail, such as cost, the time, and scope. You don't know yet. You haven't even get into it, right? It's just an idea that you think it's going to be good, and you have a rough idea what you're going to do. Like now, you have a rough idea what I'm going to do, and you have a rough idea about the justification, or rough idea how it could potentially improve your business. Write it down, right? But it is a formal document that authorizes this existence of a project and provide the project manager with the authority to apply resources to the project activities. Okay? Without this, the existence of a project, is questionable. Can you use company's money to do this project? Okay. Can you use other people? Can you actually sign a contract to hire other people? Without a project charter, there's no authority behind it. Right? It can be very, very dangerous. So the purpose of project charter should be very clear to you now, right? Outline the goals, objectives, and conditions of the project. Now, when is to be done, what is to be done, okay? And what can we do about it? Or provide an understanding of the project to the stakeholders. So whoever reach the project charter can have a good understanding what is to be conducted and what is to be done, right? And establish the general scope of what you want to do very early on, and give that project managers his or her authority level. Okay. So why do we need a project charter then? Okay, we already know. Authorize the project, communicates the goal expectations. Right? Because you see, the very old idea about accounting is that when we sacrifice resource, we want to get something in return of equal or greater, right, value. So when we did AIS, we know there are certain resources need to be sacrificed, right? So we have to set what is to be expected out of this project. So whoever read this project charter can comfortably put their signature on it. Okay, I will approve this charter and let you guys start doing the work. Right? Imagine that if you have to write your AIS idea and put on a piece of paper and ask the CEO to sign it, right? Okay, the very idea of CEO signing your paper, right, give a certain level of comfort. Oh, the CEO approved my project to begin. But yet in the same time, it can be difficult to ask the CEO's approval if you do not let the CEO know enough what is to be done in the project chart, right? So communication of the goal and expectations can be crucial to that. And then it can potentially mitigate internal project risk. A lot of times, like I said earlier, most of the AIS project and most internal projects fail, right? Because one very unfortunate thing is called infighting. But you know what that is? You want to start a project, the person who is elbowing you is actually your colleague. Why? Because that person does not want to see you to become successful. You see? So if you have a charter, you see that you have a purpose, you have the authority, right? It is less likely for this type of infighting to occur, right? So this internal project risk can be mitigated somehow, right? And you can use it to establish the support. Okay, how much support you can get from your organizations and the boundaries, how much you can get. It's not like limited power, right? You guys remember that the Star Wars movie that Samuel Jackson, the guy goes unlimited power like that. It's not like that. You don't get unlimited power. It's boundaries supposed to be set. Okay, so with that boundary, you can demarcate the authorities over resources and justify the use of the asset, whether it's a human, whether it's computer resources, electricity, right? Okay, or in-house programmers, or a petty cash fund, all this. With the charter, then you have authority. Then you can apply the authority to use those resources to get the project going. But with the understanding that the project need to be authorized at a level high enough, right? Okay, have the CEO, the chairman, or CFO, somebody who can command, right? Who has the power over the organization to authorize that project. Okay, so the project, the core component, this you probably more interested in this. What need to be done? Yeah. So these core components needs to be there. Okay, I want to see a management statement. It is usually a statement of justification. How did you justify the project? Okay, and it needs to be an issue or problem statement. State what the issues are, what the problem business is facing, right? The business, say business is lagging behind the technology development, or the business is right now having a bottleneck issues, right? Okay, with our supplier. So we need a supplier chain management AIS. Or it can be the inventory management, like for example, the project you guys saw last time, like Chipotle. Okay, the issue is that they need to manage right? The perishable goods, right? To control those things. Or impact statement, right? What will the project accomplish? And then the statement of work is basically what is to be done, right? Whether it's going to be an app, is it going to be a software, is it going to be an integrated system, right? Just tell me very, very general, right? What is to be done, okay? And then statement of responsibilities. Who is responsible for what? In our case, right, you can start with just your team member. The 5 of you, who is to do what? Who will document the project, or who is to manage the project? Who is to interface with IT guys, right? And who is to manage resources as the project accountant, right? Tell me very briefly who is to do what. And then the last part is authorization, okay, in the form of a signature block. So in your project charter, I want to see the 6 things. It doesn't need to be long, okay? It also, you can, if you want, you can also include some optional components, right? But these are not needed. I want these 6 things, right? But if you feel like, oh, I want to make it better, I want to make a kick-ass project, right? So you can do this as well. Put a success measure in it, okay? Because a lot of times, right, when you start a project,
Professor?
yes.
Sorry, will these slides be on iLearn or no?
Yes, it will. After the class, I already uploaded the slides for last class on iLearn, and this will be on iLearn as well. And not only the slides, but also a handout. It's kind of like a note thing that you can take, right? A study guide that you can follow, right? Okay, so there are optional components as well. Like, for example, how do you measure the success of the project, right? A lot of times when you say, oh, our business problem is to increase sales, right? But the success of the business problem and the success of AIS sometimes is different, okay? You finish your AIS to the T, right? We designed this way, but however, the salespeople, right, they are not using it. So how do you measure success? Is it that to have the project done or achieve that sales target? Right? You have to think carefully, because you see, if you work for AIS project for X amount of months, you did it, you tested, the AIS actually work, right? But for external reasons, right, other department or other outside forces, like, you did not actually reach that business object, did not actually solve the problem, right? Do you still deserve to be rewarded, right? Did you get that bonus, right? So how do you measure success? Say it out loud in the project charter. So the CEO says, if I complete this project, right, that means the project is successful, okay? Or if you set the goal too high, or to expand the sales by 50%, raise our revenue, this and that, then you're probably reaching too much, right? Because there will be element outside of your control. But sometimes you may want to put a success measure like that, so the CEO can say, okay, yeah, I can get behind the idea, increase sales by 10%, but I can't get behind the idea just the project is done and you're getting a bonus, right? So there's a balance somewhere, right? It varies from organization to organization, from situation to situation, right? So you may think about the project organization. Sometimes it's an internal project. Sometimes it's a project that involves multiple stakeholders. Maybe involve the government, involve the city, right? Involve external contractors, right? And you may sometimes want to put assumptions in it. We assume certain conditions will be met for this project. Like, for example, you can assume that the COVID-19 will subside by the end of the year, so therefore you can launch your project, right? Like, for example, if you are making a movie now, right? A lot of movie productions are actually shut down now, right? So if you want to start a project, you have to assume that, oh, Okay, business can resume at a certain time, right? So if this assumption is not met, we are not going to start the project. Will not be authorized. So you may want that be there as well, okay? Or the methodology, okay, how you want this AIS to be done, okay? Maybe it's collaboration with outside people, maybe it's doing done in-house, okay? Then you can perhaps sometimes put initially identify project risk or high-level cost schedule estimates, or the dependencies of the project depend on certain things to happen, then you'll do that. Or early termination criteria. These are optional, doesn't need to be there. So the question is, how long is a project charter supposed to be? Okay. A project charter can be as short as 1 page and as long as 200. If you're talking about a charter for UN, right, or charter for UNESCO, something big, yeah, okay, you probably want to write many things in it. But for a small AIS project, if you're just talking about, I'm just revamping our computer system from a manual-based system, right, to a digital system, that's a short, right? Okay, it's very clear what is to be done, right? Then the project charter can be very short, right? The 6 components we talked about earlier, right? Each one of them can be just a paragraph long, right? But it is yours to control how much information you want to put it to in order to get the authority, in order to clearly communicate a high-level view of your AIS, right? That needs to be there. And how you grade it is exactly that, right? Okay, so how you do it is you write think about the project charter and start writing something down, and have your mom, have your dad read it. Oh, will you get behind this idea, right? Because a lot of times the CEO or people with level of authority, they don't necessarily understand, okay, the lingo of information system, even let alone the AIS system, right? So write it down in a way that's easy to people to understand, right? You don't need that much detail, right? The idea is you need to obtain authority, approval, right? So the justification is shown, right? Whoever see this project charter. Okay, so you just write a summary, you don't need detailed information. Okay, and since we are doing it online, and I actually want to save more time for you guys to do that, so you can just think about it yourself, right? What would happen if there's no project charter? Right? It may lead to what? Cost overrun, right? It may lead to project failure because you are not able to obtain the resources, right? Or it may lead to certain things like even liability issues. For example, do you guys know that Tesla actually made a surfboard? Yeah, they did. And Tesla surfboard is sold very well. But if I were someone in Tesla, I will, if I work in Tesla as an accountant, I would question it. Who authorized the project? Why? At what time did you use to outsource this the surfboard? Will there be liability issues? Does somebody get on the surfboard and get injured? Will us get sued? Right? Okay. So maybe Mr. Musk himself authorized the project. We don't know. Even that we're talking about not just the surfboard. The even idea the flamethrower. Tesla was going to do a Tesla flamethrower. Wow, I would like to see who authorized the project, right? Why would you allow resources to be spent? You're a car company, make cars. Why you want to make flamethrower than a surfboard, right? That's the idea for Project Charter. Okay, you want to control the resources used in the organization, and you want the people who use this resource to have the authority. Right? Okay. So project charter is quite important from the accountant's perspective, right? So if you ever work in an organization, you see somebody running around doing a project, you probably want to question them. Do you have a charter? Who authorized use of these resources, right? Okay. Is your overtime getting paid, or are you eating away your own time, right? You're supposed to have a job, right? You're not. You're not supposed to cut away your 9 to 5, 3-4 hours to do other stuff, right? So that's the idea of the project charter. Okay, so work with your group members and start drafting the project charter after we go finish the second unit, right? This is the first unit. You can start thinking about it. Use this guideline here. I will upload it during the break, so you can see what are the main components are over here. Okay, that's just a few statements: management statement, issue problem statement, impact statement, right? Statement of work, and then statement of responsibilities, then authorization, okay? A signature block. Okay, so far so good. Yeah. So you guys want to break or go on to the second unit? Let's say, raise your hand if you want to break. Okay, raise your hand if you just want to go on. About the same. Actually, take a break. We have more people want to take a break, and it actually give me a time to upload this slide. Right, so let's take a break, and I'll upload this unit 1, and come back 4 o'clock. How's that? Good. Minnesota. You know where Minnesota is? Come in. Like 2 days, right? Wow, 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 wow. But next time when you go to Bak, you buy cherry. Finish already. Huh? Costco where?
Professor Lee, will you upload the study guide such as the 305, the study guide, will you upload on the island?
Something similar, but 307 study guide is in question form. Okay, and you sort of fill it in the information yourself.
Okay, will you upload it today? Okay, yeah.
All right, let's come back to class. All right, see people back. So far, so good. Participants. All right, so in this unit, the second unit, the project MOG, mission objective goal pyramid. We're going to share a video, but because I can't get the audio to play over Zoom, so I will show you the video, but on the on the screen, right? But you may need to watch the video using your own YouTube. I'll post the link in the chat window when we get to it. Okay, so let's see this. All right. So the second unit we need to talk about is something important to every organization, to give that organization an identity and to drive your project to work. And this has something to do in what we call the mission, objective, goals, and milestone. And interesting about this mission or objective, goal, and milestone, sometimes in everyday English or what we call the managerese. Do you guys know the language called managerese? It's a particular language. It's quite interesting. It's just putting a lot of business word in it, right? Those business mumbo jumbo doesn't mean anything. It's not a good way of writing. It's just, okay, I'll pull out the thesaurus. Okay, mission. Okay, next paragraph, I'm gonna change another word. What is a word is can be synonym to mission. I'll change that. It's interesting about business writing. The business writing it should be simple, easy to read, right? Straightforward. It should not contain like complicated words, right? But a lot of times that, especially university students, if you see how business students write, you know, in the first year, when they just enter the school, they write very straightforward, like a high school student, straightforward, get to the point. But as they move along, they get to junior and they get to senior, they start to get some flowery language in their writing. Don't do that. That's what we call managerese. Doesn't mean anything, right? So a lot of times the words like goals, objective, or mission and milestone, they are used interchangeably. Don't do that. Okay. And informal business rights communications, these terms have different implications. And I want you to adopt this idea, right? They mean different things and they have different specificity to it. Okay. So how do we look at this mission, objective, goal, and milestone? Is by this pyramid here. On the top, you have the mission statement. And then is the business objective, management directives, and system or project goals. And at the bottom is the project milestone. Why is this list like a pyramid? It's because here, there's a downward, okay, empowerment process. If you have a good mission statement, it will empower your business objective to achieve that. And that business objective will empower the management to make certain directives, orders, do this and do that, right? Okay, common times in the organization is like this. Okay, we have an objective to achieve sales target by 20%, right? And then the management will have a meeting. Right? After the meeting, the manager is supposed to do what? Give out orders. Hey, in my department, guys, go ahead and do this or do that. The worst type of management is after a meeting and they just scratch their head, okay, give me a coffee, and no orders coming out. All right. So you see, things like this are supposed to be from top who will empower things that's below that. So management directives will empower us, the AIS, to set the project or system goals, right? And then once we have the system goals, we empower us to set different milestones. And the other direction is enable directions. Once you have everything you accomplish at the bottom, the project milestones, once every milestone is accomplished, that will enable us to get the system goal. If the system goals are accomplished, that will enable us to achieve the management directives, and then go up will enable us to accomplish our business objective, eventually, right, realize our mission statement. So this MOG pyramid is something that I have used in my professional life for quite a while. It's quite useful. And you can literally use this pyramid, energy pyramid, to analyze the business to see where they are at, right? Whether this company is lack of business objective, or the business is lack of management directives, right? Or maybe this the enabling process is something wrong, whether it's there's something wrong, the empowering process is going wrong. You can use this quite easily and see, analyze a business to find out whether something is amiss, right? So try to do this. I like it. It's quite useful, really. Okay. So when it comes to mission statement, what really is a mission statement then? Okay, it's AKA sometimes we call it a vision statement, and sometimes we call it the corporate model. It's meant to go above and beyond just dollar and cents. Why? Because it sets a value proposition to the stakeholder. Right? Why are we here? Why do we matter? Okay. What does this organization mean? Right? What's their place in the society? Okay, that's what the mission statement is about. Right? It establishes an identity of the organization. It gives them a soul per se. Right? Okay. So if we think about it, like, let's take a look at this. To inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Which corporation? What do you guys think?
Starbucks. No.
Yeah, Starbucks. Did they do that? Sort of, eh? Yeah, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Yeah, they sort of accomplished that. You know, if I work at Starbucks, right? Statement like that supposed to empower me to set objectives. All right, next person, next cup, next neighborhood. Right. Okay, we haven't get into that particular neighborhood yet. Well, let's start a business plan to set a expansion plan to go into the next neighborhood. Right. How about this one? Give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected.
Facebook.
Yeah, that's Facebook. Yeah. Did they do that? Yeah, kind of. Right? Do you think that this statement gives that organization and sort of an identity, a soul to that organization per se? Yeah, kind of, right? How about this one? To save people money so they can live better.
Walmart.
Save money, live better. Right, but you see, when you have a mission statement like that, just dollar and cents, you know, it's not really inspiring, is it? Well, no. Okay. That's why, you know, especially for this, one thing interesting about when we keep observing the business world, one of the struggle that current business manager having is how to convince millennial, your generation, to work. Because what's happening with the current business generation or the millennial generation is that it is getting harder and harder just to use dollar and cents to attract millennial to work, right? Why? Because the millennials are poor. You know, just make X amount, a little bit more dollar. You know, it's either a lot of money or a little bit, right? There's nothing in between. There's not like a ladder you can climb. So what happens to this current generation is that people don't get duped by money anymore. You know, they want a business, a life, a career that actually matter. So that's why now social responsibility or nonprofit organizations, they are attracting a lot of people because of this. Because people don't not just like devote my life to make money to pay off my debt, right? If I'm gonna work getting $20 an hour, $25 an hour, I might as well just work for something that I make myself feel good, right? So that's what a mission statement is for. Do you feel the identity of your organization? Do you share that soul? Right? Do you want to devote your energy to that organization? Right? That's what matters here. Right? Now, how about this one? To make a contribution to the world by making tools for the mind that advance humankind.
Apple.
Yes, But this is the old Apple mission statement. Steve Jobs concocted this mission statement upon his return to Apple. Right? He was actually fired by Apple, you know. Right? And when he was fired by Apple, he went ahead and started Pixar, right? And he became quite successful. And then Apple hired him back. And upon his return, he made this mission statement. I thought this is Apple has since changed their mission statement, but I have always thought this is the best mission statement I have ever seen. Right? It really gives this organization, Apple, an identity, right? And that's what they really try to do, right? iPhone, iPad, really, they are all tools for the mind, right? And that will advance the humankind. I really love this this mission statement. By reading this mission statement, I want to work there. I know that's something to be admired, right? How about this one? To be Earth's most customer-centric company, to build a place where people can come and find and discover anything that might want to buy online. Boring.
Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah. So by examining this few mission statement, it's sort of a feeling, right? Do you feel empowered, right? To set certain objectives? Yeah. Do you feel I share their identity? I want to work. No, I want to set objective, business objective, concrete objective to realize those statements, right? That's what the place of the mission statement is, right? So, of course, next, let's take a look at business objective. Well, the business objective and the mission statement are very different because mission statement just give you the model, right? But business objective, they set the operational mandate of the business. As a business, what do you do? How do you do? How do you operate in order to realize that mission statement? Operationally, what you're gonna do, right? So it sets at a business level, which means that as a business, what's your business gonna move? How are you gonna move, right? What you're gonna do next? So it focuses on a clearly identifiable target achievement. Identify it clearly. Okay, this is the objective. Unlike mission statement, it can be very vague, but when it comes to business objective, it has to be concrete, clearly identifiable, using concrete terms to describe that. Achieve a funding target of 700 million, to become public listed by 2020, to expand the operation into the Pan-Pacific region, to allow autonomous driving capability for every vehicle next year. These are concrete terms, right? Okay, so people have a sense that operationally, what do we have to do in order to achieve this, right? Okay, so imagine that you are a manager in the accounting department or a manager in the sales department. You're in a meeting seeing this business objective being stated by the chairman or by the CEO. What you have to do is this: set the management directives, give out directions to your employee, what needs to be happened, right? So state the specific management actions, strategies, or responsibilities that would enable the organization to accomplish the business objective, right? Remember, the enabling path is going from bottom top, right? So now we have this business objective. It is empowering me to give out directions, to give orders, right? Because I know that by doing this order, giving this order, right, once it's accomplished, it will in turn enable the business objective, right? So it focuses on clearly identifiable action, things to do, right? So states at the functional level means at a specific department, right? Accounting department, what you have to do, sales department, what you have to do, marketing department, what you have to do. Like, for example, direct the internal control function to conduct company-wide audit, to provide better customer service through real-time chat, to improve product quality and reduce defect by 20% through Q&A, or to allow real-time tracking of a product shipment over the website, right? So these are the things, actions that have to be done, okay? Set at the functional level, okay? So after the management have give out their orders, these are the orders that we want to do, right? So we set a system. Okay, the system is supposed to accomplish some goals empowered by the management directive to accomplish a specific target or essential component in the operation of the business. For example, if we have a management directive, right, saying that we want to improve product quality and reduce defect by 20% through new QA, the quality control or quality audit, we may need to design a system to do that, to track quality control, right? To track improvements, to see how much money, how much budget we spend, right? On the term what we call the cost of quality. Because quality costs money, quality costs resources, right? So now we have this management directive asking us as a department to do that, right? Now we need a system, right, in order to do that. So usually have a clearly stated start and end date. That's what systems usually have to do. We start at a certain time, and by what time this system can be done, right, in order to do those things that management specified us to do. Okay, it specifies responsibilities, right? Just like in the charter, the goals will reflect that charter. Okay, who's to do what? This system is to do what? Okay. Consider business assumptions and the conditions and focus on the identification of achievable, feasible business components. That's what the system goals are. So in your AIS writing, okay, sorry, I forgot project milestone. You don't need to do project milestone, by the way, okay, because when we are writing at this stage, we don't know about the project milestone yet, okay? You can set a very simple predetermined time to review the project and say 2020 we want to do this, 2021 we're going to review, 2023 we're going to do that. But basically what a project milestone is that it allows tracking of resource usage against the set target, right? Can be used for billing, budgeting purposes, and usually can serve as a stop and go. Are we going to stop in after this milestone? Okay, we accomplished this, but no, it's not worthwhile to go more, right? So project milestone usually do that. So next is I want you to see, to watch this video here, and let me put it on the chat window. You should be able to see in the chat window here now. Okay, try to watch that video. It's not too long, about 8 minutes or so. And I will put on my slides so we can still see.
I'm playing Space Invaders Theranos Edition. It's a game that was created by a former Theranos employee. The invader in this version of the game is me, along with some Zika viruses. And the machine gun at the bottom of the screen is Theranos' mini lab blood testing device. And the bullets that it's shooting are its little nanotainer vials. You know, it's another one of the crazy twists in this crazy story that has essentially consumed the past 3.5 years of my life. Theranos is a diagnostics startup that was founded in Silicon Valley in 2003, and its product was a device that was going to enable you to run the full range of laboratory tests off just a drop or two of blood from a finger. It was founded by a Stanford dropout, Elizabeth Holmes, in 2003, and she rose to fame about 10 years later in 2013. Graced the covers of magazines, and her company reached a valuation of more than $9 billion. And then I came along, and the Wall Street Journal came along, and we published a story that revealed that the company was actually doing the vast majority of its blood tests on commercial analyzers purchased from third parties.
This is what happens when you work to change things. And first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Investors in the end were defrauded, and patients, that the health of patients was jeopardized. Theranos investors did not do what you would consider sufficient due diligence. You need to consider the environment. The environment was an enormous bubble, and incredible sums of money were flowing into the Silicon Valley ecosystem and being really thrown at startups, and Theranos was one of them. And so any investors, that did try to do a little due diligence and ask too many questions were turned down. The other factor here in play is that Elizabeth was an incredibly smart, charismatic, charming young woman.
People don't even know that they have a basic human right to be able to get access to information about themselves and their own bodies.
Her eyes are part of her magic spell. They're part of her charisma. She seems to be able to look at people intently without blinking longer than the average human being can.
And we'd like to see a world in which every person gets access to this type of basic testing.
Her idol was Steve Jobs, and she shared this trait with him, which is that she had an ability to make people suspend disbelief. She has this reality distortion field, just like Steve Jobs. She also has this very deep voice. One employee, this is an anecdote in my book, caught her slipping out of her baritone and was really thrown off by that and realized at that point that she was faking the deep voice.
We really resonate with this concept of better transparency in lab testing.
I mean, I've been a reporter for 20 years, and in all those years I had never encountered the amount of pushback and the amount of resistance and the counterattack, frankly, that I encountered reporting this story. So to give you an idea of how the company and Elizabeth reacted to the publication of my first story, she had been invited to speak at our technology conference. I expected her to push back hard and to come out swinging, but I was stunned by some of the things she said. I simply didn't think that she would go before a public forum and bald-faced lie again and again and again.
At the end of August, FDA did an inspection at Theranos. That being conflated with, is there concerns about our testing methodology, which was what was written in the Wall Street Journal article, is just completely false.
She actually never agreed to be interviewed by me, and so by the time my first story about Theranos was published, I had been trying to interview Elizabeth for 5.5 months. And we're now some 3.5 years later, and Elizabeth Holmes has
Theranos is a diagnostic startup.
I think if I had the opportunity to finally meet with Elizabeth in person today, I would ask her, how were you able to justify putting patients in harm's way?
Just a drop or two of blood from a finger. It was founded by a Stanford dropout, Elizabeth Holmes.
I loved Space Invaders growing up.
To fame about 10 years later,
I had an Atari.
2013.
My favorite game.
Covers of magazines,
That
and
and
our
Pac-Man.
company reached a valuation of more than $9 billion. And then
Here we go again.
I came along, and the Wall Street Journal came along, and we published a story that revealed that the company was actually doing the vast majority of its blood tests on.
I'm playing Space Invaders Theranos Edition. It's a game that was created by a former Theranos employee. The invader in this version of the game is me, along with some Space Invaders Theranos Edition, and the machine gun at the bottom of the screen.
So, are you guys able to see the video in your own place? Are you guys seeing it? Okay.
Yes.
So, I understand that some of you might not be able to see it, so let me just summarize it a bit. Okay, so Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, she, do you guys know she's actually on trial right now? Yeah, she's in court for fraud, for corporate fraud. You know, what Theranos did is that they have a very, very beautiful mission. They said that every human should have the basic human right to know what is going on with respect to their own body, right? So what they are trying to do is to invent a machine. That machine is so good that if you take a drop or two of your blood, it can run a variety of tests and then give you the results in a very short amount of time. In comparison to how you have to draw vials and vials of blood. Okay, so you see this Elizabeth Holmes, right? She even dressed like Steve Jobs. She tried to give out that aura of the Silicon Valley type of thing, right? And she tried to portray her image as somebody who have that, that clout by talking with a very deep baritone voice, like this. Oh man, I have so much power. Yeah. So that's what she did. Okay, so but what happens is that if you read the book and the article, it's quite interesting. There's actually a HBO documentary on Theranos, on her. If you're interested, you can go see that this beautiful mission, right? It never come out to some type of concrete business objective. None. What we see the objective of this business, the Theranos is trying to do is just to get investment money. That's it. Get investment money, get investment money, get investment money. Do we see any order that say go spend X amount of dollars in R&D? Right? Okay. Go talk to some third-party vendor to build that actual machine. We don't see that. And then the funny thing about the operation is that little machine that's so crucial to the success of this company remain to be that little black box that nobody know what it's about, right? And what do? They pay other third-party companies to actually run the blood test. That's how they get that blood test. So you see, this whole thing become a scam because you see, if you look at it from the MOG pyramid perspective, where's the business objective? What did you try to accomplish, right? And what kind of directives, orders the management do to do those things? Do we have R&D guys there? Do we have a scientist there, right? Do we have a product specialist there, right? None. Okay, so in business and in fraud, one thing is very interesting is that the government or the court, right, does not punish honest mistake, right? If you just foolhardily believed that you can make a car fly, right? And then you go out and attract investors, they invest you in $20, $30 million. And if you really tried and you fail, that's fine, right? But if you knowingly or if you didn't do anything, if you knowingly just trying to get an investment, right? Try to enrich yourself and not really doing the business, then that's fraud, okay? And the argument for Theranos and against Elizabeth Holmes is indeed that, right? You didn't do anything, right? You were trying just to get more and more investment. It wasn't an honest mistake per se, okay? So that's why this thing is so interesting. If you look at from the MOG, the pyramid, And it is more interesting if you thinking from an accountant's perspective. If you are an accountant working in Theranos, you examine the book, you know there's no R&D dollars spent, right? And companies are actually paying because you have account payable to look at. Companies are actually paying other companies to do the blood exam. And as an accountant, you knew there's something fishy here, right? And for investigations like this, right, accountants will be called onto the stand to testify. As an accountant, what did you see? What kind of transaction did you see, right? Don't you think that it is off, right? If you are an accountant working there, would you report this, right? Where do you stand? It's quite interesting to think all those, right? So let's come back to our own material, right? So for your AIS project, this is what I would like to see. I would like you to produce the MOG pyramid of your own AIS project, okay? Focus on the business objective, management directives, and the system goals. The mission statement and milestones are optional. You don't really need to focus on them. Okay, so it tells you a little bit about this. You should clearly state the final outcome of the project, such as this: implement an online booking and payment system, right? Clear. May include some type of deadline, like for example, by the end of 2011, things like that, right? Okay, so required, state the following: the business objective, management directive, and system goal. Optional, you may produce that pyramid, okay, visually if you want to. The mission statement, if you are working for, let's say, try to get a real company, let's say some of the project you saw 2 days ago, some was trying to do Amazon, some was trying to do Costco, right? That if you have a real company in your head, the mission statement may come by easily, right? But if you are making a business of your own, you may find it a bit harder because you have to write your own mission statement, right? So it is not required for you to do that. But I do want to see business objective, management directive, and system goals, okay? So yeah, it is usually easier to find an actual business to propose the AIS, okay? You could talk to your current or previous manager about their business to find out, yeah, maybe we can do an accounting information system here, right? And last week we go through some examples, some slides, right? Exploring different kind of AIS, right? You can start from that as well. Okay, you can also talk to your family members, right? And one good thing about this, if you're currently working, is that it's actually a very good opportunity to showcase your ability in the workplace. Previous semesters, I actually have students get a promotion because of this. And one very, very good example is a person that took this class a year ago. And she proposed the software and she showed her AIS software package when she doing the job interview. And she ended up working in Amazon starting June. She was working in the Seagate and now Amazon, right? And she told me this is what she showed, this entire project, the showcase. She packaged this whole thing as a portfolio and used that in the interview process and become very successful. Yeah. Okay, so let's do that. Let's let me put you guys into your breakout room, okay? And then work with your group. So it may take me a while to get everybody in there because we have like almost 40 people to assign. So just give me a few more minutes. So I will put you guys in the breakout room one by one. All right, let me go ahead and do this. Okay.